Welcome to the MeidasTouch Network. We are joined again by Congressmember Jared Moskowitz. Congressman, welcome to the show.
Happy to be back.
So I can't say I truly missed Congress being in recess, although now that it's returned, it gives me a lot of...
You missed Congress, did you?
It gives me a lot of content to discuss here, although I certainly prefer normalcy. As Congress just returned from its August recess, Marjorie Taylor Greene is calling for secession. She just posted, if the Biden administration refuses to stop the invasion of cartel-led human and drug trafficking into our country, states should consider seceding from the union. That took place earlier in the day. What's your response to that, Congressman?
Well, I mean, look, her husband called for secession, which is why, she had that in her personal life. I mean, what do you want me to say? I mean, that's just being said for ridiculousness. Remember, she called for a national divorce again, divorce. But this is the same thing from her. She's definitely ratcheting up the commentary of late. Remember, she was being looked at as someone who was trying to work with Kevin McCarthy, maybe going a little bit more mainstream. But now this seems to be vintage Marjorie. It's good to see her back, isn't it? Right, where she says things and we kind of have to figure out what the heck she's talking about. Oh, like breaking up the union. That sounds super congressional and a real leader.
We even have right now within the MAGA Republican Party these different factions, right? You have Ken Buck from the Freedom Caucus. He's calling out Marjorie Taylor Greene and saying, while he was teaching con law, she was doing CrossFit videos on social media.
Hey, look, she's good at that CrossFit. Okay, and Marjorie needs an outlet, so let her have CrossFit.
Then she went back and said that Ken Buck is a Democrat now, or a communist, fascist, Marxist, or whatever is going on there. It is complete turmoil, though, that's going on there. And what are you observing as you kind of walk the halls of Congress as Congress has returned?
Well, look, September is going to be fascinating. So you got Freedom Caucus members fighting with each other, of course, over Biden impeachment. For those who, want to continue to expand their Twitter following, they're pushing impeachment. For Republicans that want to try to keep control of the House as they go into re-election, they know that's not what the American people want. They also know there's no evidence. In fact, you're starting to see these quotes from Republicans, and not just mainstream Republicans or moderate Republicans, but Freedom Caucus Republicans, that there is no evidence that links Joe Biden to any of this. I think Nancy Mace said you can't impeach the president's son. And that's exactly right. Maybe Hunter did some things and that's going to get him in trouble, and we'll see where the law takes. No one's above the law. That's our position with Donald Trump. It's the same thing with Hunter Biden, but there's nothing that links this to Joe Biden, but they've tried this whole thing, right? He's head of the Biden crime family. None of it is sticking, but they'll continue to throw this at the wall. But now they're fighting with each other on impeachment. But it's interesting because this is really going to affect not just whether the government can stay open. It's not going to just affect the next 3 months, but it's going to affect Speaker Kevin McCarthy. You're seeing Freedom Caucus members floating the idea of making the motion to vacate, which has been this threat now out there for months if McCarthy didn't do exactly what the Freedom Caucus wanted them to do. Simultaneously, what will Democrats do if the Freedom Caucus makes a motion to vacate? Will they throw the House into turmoil? Will they team up with the Freedom Caucus, or will they decide not to do that? It's all going to be very interesting and fascinating. And by the way, at the same time this is going on, we're trying to keep the government functioning and our economy going for the American people.
What would be your reaction to that? And where do you think the Democrats would respond if Matt Gaetz or members of the Freedom Caucus bring that motion to vacate and try to call Kevin McCarthy and call him out? How would Democrats respond to that?
Well, I think we're in the first inning of an 8-inning game here, and so let's wait to see what happens. Look, Democrats teaming up with the Freedom Caucus doesn't happen quite often, if at all. And so it would be very surprising to me if somehow that there was some unholy alliance that got formed to do this. Again, you need the House to be functioning in order to keep the government open. And so, we'll have to wait to see how it all comes down. And you could have different factions, right? You could have the progressives doing something differently than the problem solvers. You could have Democrats who represent, districts that Donald Trump won doing stuff differently. So I think it's too early. I think it's also too early, quite frankly, because let's see if the Freedom Caucus actually makes the motion. It's easy to make the threat, much harder to actually go in and make the motion and take us back to January when we have to have 15 votes on deciding who the speaker is. Oh, by the way, who's Kevin's replacement? I mean, obviously, I want it to be Hakeem Jeffries, right, when we take back the majority. But who's it going to be on the Republican side? I mean, based on the way things are going, I mean, maybe they'll nominate someone who wants to bring back, the Salem witch trial. Maybe that'll be the leading candidate for speaker if they try to remove Kevin.
I saw Congressmember Eric Swalwell earlier in the day call out Matt Gaetz as being all talk, no action when it comes to bringing that motion to vacate with respect to Kevin McCarthy. Matt Gaetz kind of took the bait, hook, line, and sinker and said, no, I'm going to do it. Watch what happens. What do you think's going to happen?
Well, look, but Matt actually had a decent retort, which is, and will you join me? Right? Which is, when I do it, and make this motion, will you join me and vote for the motion to vacate? And that is going to be the fascinating piece, right, on what group of Freedom Caucus members decide to, jump off the cliff here. And look, at the end of the day, right, what's the old saying that if you go for the king, you aim for his head? I don't think the votes currently exist. You would need 100% of the Democrats, based on the amount of Freedom Caucus members that I think that are willing to do this. So if you have 5 or 6 or 7 Freedom Caucus members that are willing to do this, you need the entire Democratic Party in the House to do it. And I just don't see the votes being there for that at the moment.
And Congressmember, you sit on the House Oversight Committee, and we've covered your commentary and your questioning on the House Oversight Committee. It's led by MAGA Republican James Comer. And like the Judiciary Committee, they talk a lot, these MAGA Republicans, whether it's Jim Jordan, James Comer, about weaponization of the DOJ, weaponization of the government. I want to show you a clip right now of Donald Trump from the past few days in South Dakota, where he states what he would like to do if he was elected again. Then I want to get your reaction to it. Let's play this clip.
Biggest fear that everybody has. Our momentum is unprecedented and hopefully unstoppable, and that's the reason that Joe Biden's ordered his leading opponent arrested on 91 fake and phony charges. 91. How many charges are they? But we're going to ask for dismissals of a lot of it. Most of it is just, you ask for dismissal. It's called dismiss the charges. But remember, it's a Democrat charging his opponent. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. That means that if I win and somebody wants to run against me, I call my attorney general. I say, listen, indict him. Well, he hasn't done anything wrong that we know of. I don't know. Indict him on income tax evasion. You'll figure it out. And the good thing with me is I have a big voice, and people know me, and you know me for a long time. But people know me, and I'm able to speak. But if you're a regular politician, a really good politician, an honest politician, and you get indicted, you get a subpoena, and that gets reported in the paper and the news, you have to leave office. And the Republicans in the Senate and the Republicans in the House cannot let this go on, because people are being destroyed. Lives are being destroyed by these sick lunatics in Washington.
Congressman, what's your response?
Well, I want to laugh, but he's being really serious, actually, right? Where, it's kind of fun where, he does his thing and, the mannerism, they indicted me, my attorney general. But, he's being serious. If he were to become president again, what he's admitting there in South Dakota is that without any evidence or without any reason, he is going to instruct the attorney general to start indicting people in this country. And so we already know this about Donald Trump, that he will destroy democracy. He will destroy the remainder of the institutions. He will continue to undermine the credibility of this country if he were to get back into power. And so, yes, he said it in a nice, entertaining way with the hand gestures. But but it's dead serious about what he would do. There would be, Republicans like to say the weaponization of government. We live in a banana republic, but that is the explanation right there of exactly what a banana republic would be if that man were given the levers of power again.
And while Congress was in recess too, you had MAGA Republicans like Jim Jordan basically sending letters on behalf of Donald Trump, to Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, trying to interfere with her criminal case, sending letters to Special Counsel Jack Smith, trying to interfere with federal prosecutorial efforts. What is your response as you see your colleagues engaged in tactics like that?
Well, I mean, first of all, look, the Republicans are very good at this. They've learned this from Donald, which is as they're doing stuff, they accuse the other side of doing it, right? So the other side, Democrats, have weaponized government, while meanwhile, Republicans are doing that all day long, right? I mean, look, we bought this on Etsy, so we didn't get this from the Trump campaign, of course. But I mean, look at this shirt, right? I love this. Never surrender. You know the best part about this photo and this shirt? It was taken. This photo was taken literally as he is surrendering to law enforcement. And yet he makes a shirt that says never surrender. And the cry now is never surrender. And that's the point, right? They're very good. And Donald has shown the Republicans how to do this, which is why he wants impeachment so bad. So that way he can go around and he can say, impeached Joe Biden. He's been impeached. Right. And so that way he can talk about impeachment, but about Joe Biden, not about the fact that he's a twice impeached president. And so Trump gets the narrative. He wants to be able, some people are saying, which gives it credibility in his mind. And he puts it out there in the sphere, and then it takes off on social media. And so, look, there is no doubt that the Republican PR machine is going to be better than the Democratic PR machine in the next election. They're ramped up, and you can see it. And truth doesn't matter, right? I mean, it's just every day there's some sort of new thing. We're throwing everything at the wall to figure out what sticks. And they're seeing the polling on the Democratic side, and they feel like they're making headway. And so we're going to have to dramatically over-communicate, more so than we're used to. We're going to have to recognize that just because we told the American people something last week doesn't mean they remember it. We're going to have to tell them again and again. And we're going to have to talk about all the wins that have happened under the Biden administration to combat Donald Trump going out there and trying to tell the American people this lie, this fantasy.
Are Democratic members of Congress, led by Hakeem Jeffries, preparing in that effort over the next coming months and year?
Oh, I think so. I mean, listen, you've seen Democratic members on the Oversight, Judiciary, the Weaponization Committee be extremely aggressive in pushing back on this narrative. I mean, how many hearings have I sat in where, Jamie Comer, has got some, the latest witness that they say says this, and it turns out that that's not what the witness says at all. I mean, they have not been able to lay a glove on the president in my mind, but they're going to continue to do this. I mean, they're literally just an extension of the Trump campaign at the moment. Perhaps it should just be an in-kind contribution on Trump's FEC report, James Comer's investigation. And so Democrats have been combating this in the House, and we're going to have to do it on social media, but we're going to have to go on television and do it. We're going to have to go and to rallies and do it because it's going to take all of the Democrats in the House and the Senate in conjunction with the Biden administration to go out and tell the American people the truth, rather than this false narrative that Trump and all his cronies are selling.
So we're approaching this big October 1st deadline where the government needs to be funded, or else there could be some catastrophic consequences. Democrats want to fund the government, and you have MAGA Republicans once again talking about holding our country hostage, the same way they did with the debt ceiling, now about passing these critical 12 appropriation bills that they haven't acted on. So what's going on there? What are Democrats doing about that? What do you think this looks like in the coming weeks?
Yeah, look, I'm okay if I want to do it by these 12 appropriation bills, right? Rather than one big omnibus. I'm okay with that. Now, obviously, they've loaded some of these things up with, social policy, which is why you can't support them, and we'll wait for them to bounce back to the Senate. But they're not even moving these bills. They're not ready. And so I think what Matt Gaetz and the Freedom Caucus are setting up, quite frankly, is a win-win scenario if you want to close the government and you want to disrupt the process, which is if they call for this motion to vacate and it just turns out that a bunch of Democrats wind up voting against the motion or voting for a table, what they'll then say is that Kevin McCarthy is now supported by the Democrats, right? So this Republican on Republican crime in the House, I'm not a major strategist, but I don't see how they're going to keep the majority while they're tearing each other apart, quite frankly, which is fine if you're a Democrat and you want to take the majority back, but it's not good for the country. And so September is going to be very fascinating, like I said earlier, on how all of this is going to play out. And then in the background, right, we have trying to keep the government open. The Senate is unified, Democrats and Republicans unified over there on wanting to fund the government, wanting to fund Ukraine. And they're going to be fighting a House where Republicans are fractured. Democrats are going to be mostly unified. September is going to be, if you're a political science major, pay attention to C-SPAN.
I know an issue critical to you is disaster relief funding and making sure that it is well funded. Can you speak to that and why it's so important and what needs to be done? Well,
look, I'm the only person who was a former emergency management director here in Congress. I've responded to a hurricane, I've responded to COVID. And so, what FEMA does, and they do this on a nonpartisan basis, is they come in and they help communities respond, recover, and rebuild after events. And what happens is that cities and counties, especially those that are fiscally constrained, can't afford these disasters that happen. They can't afford to clean up. They can't afford to recover. So they need that federal money to help come in and do that. FEMA does that through reimbursement, where the money gets spent on the front end, then FEMA comes in with a check to help replenish those dollars that were spent locally. That fund, called the DRF, the Disaster Recovery Fund, is out of money. We've had major disasters here in this country, in Florida and Hawaii and other places. And so we're out of money. The budget cycle is over. FEMA is not going to be able to go in and help communities do this. It will affect response. And this is not something emergency management directors across this country or governors, quite frankly, should have to be concerned about when their community faces disaster. They should know that the government is there. The full faith credit of the federal government is coming there to support them. And so, I'm for refunding it. And I'm for refunding it, quite frankly, if it has to be done as a clean bill. I support the Biden package with the Ukraine dollars. But if for some reason that gets stalled for some reason, I would support funding FEMA on a clean bill.
Congressman, as Congress returns, starts getting back into the flow of the work that it was doing before it left for the August recess.
What work were we doing? Are you aware of work that's going on here? This is not like the last Congress that passed, these big pieces of legislation that are going to help, American families. What's the work here that we're doing? They're doing a great job at passing bills that will make, great campaign mailers.
And let's talk about that. What would a Democratic Congress look like? Work's probably not the best word to use. As Congress returns and MAGA Republicans engage in whatever performative nonsense they're engaged in, paint the picture for everybody watching. What would this look like if it was Democrats in control of Congress right now? What would we be seeing happen?
Well, we would be working on making healthcare more affordable, which Joe Biden has done, right, on things like insulin. We would be doing that on a broader spectrum. We'd be making, homes more affordable, insurance more affordable. And I'm from Florida right now. Home insurance is adding to the crisis. We would be working on making sure that people can afford their rent and that they're getting good paying jobs. You've seen the Biden administration, doing that. They would have a partner in Congress, in the House, working with them to do that. And so, it would be exactly what we did with the Inflation Reduction Act and the infrastructure bill, right? This is about investing money into America and the Chips and Science Act, right? So that we can make us competitive with the rest of the world, bringing back those jobs, those manufacturing jobs back to America, making sure that we'd be prepared. God forbid there was another pandemic from a supply chain standpoint. So, we would be working hand in glove with the administration to accomplish things like that for the American people, rather than the nonsense that's going on in the House right now, which is, working on gas stoves. I was gone. That now they're talking about ceiling fans. Democrats want to ban ceiling fans. Let me make a promise to the American people that if you have a ceiling fan, you're going to be able to keep your ceiling fan.
How about beer? One of their new ones is that you're limited to 2 beers a month, and you saw that Ted Cruz.
Oh yeah, Ted Cruz.
Shove it up your ass.
Ted Cruz, right? Who's according to Trump, whose dad killed JFK. Since that's in the news again, can't forget that one. That's my favorite Trump line, by the way. That maybe some people are saying his dad, was Lee Harvey Oswald's friend. We seem like Ted has just forgotten about that. Like, think about that, right? The former president of the United States said that a U.S. senator's father killed another president. We just kind of were like, oh, Trump being Trump. But yeah, I saw Ted Cruz drinking his beer, with a couple of guys in the background. Like, he hangs out with those guys. No one wants to hang out with Ted Cruz at all, ever.
We'll leave it at that. Congressmember Jared Moskowitz, thanks for joining us on the show.
Thanks.
Make sure you hit subscribe on our YouTube channel. We're on our way to 2 million subscribers right now. And check us out as well wherever audio podcasts are available at the MeidasTouch podcast. Have a great day.
Hey, Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.